Greetings, Earthlings, Wisdom Keepers, Wisdom Seekers. Welcome back to Wisdom Dropz, your source for daily drops of wisdom and savvy cat astrology. My name is Tanya, and today we are talking about the part 2 to the waxing moon and generally moon phase videos, okay? This is all about how to work your magic, people, and in this video we're talking a little less about the astrology of the moon and a little more about the cultural inheritance of the moon through the cultures and through the wisdom forces and sources of this world. So we are talking in this video about witches, we are talking in this video about shaman, we are talking in this video about farmers in relation to the moon phases, okay? So if you're into that, stick around for the end of the vid, because the whole thing's bound to be interesting and awesome, if I do say so. But before I get into it, make sure you're subscribed to the Wisdom Dropz channel, because I do put out daily drops of wisdom and savvy cat astrology, and I'm here for you as your source for that. So be sure you support the channel by subscribing, hit the bell notification button. Make sure if this video brings you any value by the end of it, like it, consider sharing it with a friend. All the support counts. And thank you to those of you who are subscribed for your patience listening to this little caveat, okay? Now, moving along. Where does the moon really begin in human history? Well, since human history, because the moon has been something that humans have found themselves absolutely mesmerized by since the beginning of humanity. Now that, as we know from ancient relics, is literally thousands of years ago, right? But if you think about it, how do we use it and what's the significance culturally? Well, in the last video I just posted yesterday, so check that out, I talked about how to use the moon when it's waxing. You want to bring in things that you want in your life during a waxing moon, just as you want to reduce things that you don't want in your life during a waning moon. And those things can be different sides of the same coin. So on a waxing moon, say you want more money, you bring in money and intentions and actions that are going to build that money for you during the waxing moon. But when the moon turns into a waning phase, you get rid of unhealthy habits that are no longer serving you around how you manage your money. You see what I'm saying? There's like two different sides of that coin, and you can use the waxing and the waning moons respectively. But who knew about this? Where did this understanding come from? Where did this deeper, higher knowledge come from? Well, it came from the ancients, and you can see the moon symbolized in this magical intention kind of way in a variety of ancient cultures. I am not like necessarily an absolute expert on like anthropological insights, but what I will say is that the majority of ancient civilizations that I have become quasi familiar with in some way, shape, or form reference moon magic. You definitely see this, friend, in ancient Egypt in the hieroglyphs. They definitely show this, they definitely talk about this. Rituals of all forms throughout humans, history has been under the moon phases. Okay, so this is significant stuff. Now, in ancient times, we also see this used in their healing rituals. So shaman would use the waning moon to take things out of a body and the waxing moon to bring things into the body, okay? Shaman also used this concept under a ritual. So if you have a full moon, there's like more magic, and same if you have a new moon, there's more magic, there's more potential, okay? Now the similarity with this kind of like applied medicine of shamanism and this like understanding in astrology is that both of those larger philosophies understand that the new moon and the full moon are kind of like culminating periods and also resetting periods. So the new moon is always going to be where something new is coming in, and it's where it's currently dark, so it has potential to grow, okay? And the full moon is always like a manifestation or a fullness is being brought to light, brought to consciousness. In ancient civilizations, under a full moon is when we would have celebrations, as a matter of fact. Why? Well, part of that you could say from like a very logical, like, no magic, nothing like that perspective. The full moon's where we have the most light at nighttime. So if you're going to congregate at nighttime, it makes sense to congregate under a full moon, because that's when you can see the best at night. You can actually see who you're talking to in the middle of the night and not run into a tree. You see what I'm saying? But on the flip side, it's also because the energies are higher. And if you talk to any first responder, cops, fire people, all sorts of stuff, if you talk to those people, the paramedics, they'll tell you under a full moon, there is definitely more activity that needs their attention as first responders, because the energy of the world is just higher at that time, and it's more lunatic, if you will, in nature. And lunatic, as a matter of fact, comes from people who used to worship the moon and became associated with altered states of consciousness, or so-called like insanity and so forth, and that became part of the larger nomenclature around kind of like scapegoating different people who were actually into the alchemy and into the magical workings of the lunation cycle. And that's kind of part of the larger way that we've managed to demystify the moon cycle within current modern culture. But if you check back to the ancient magical practitioners of ancient Egypt, even in Europe, you see all sorts of moon documentation, okay? But let's delve a little bit more into like so-called magic with this. Now, in modern day Wicca, which is actually kind of like not so much watered down in my opinion, but it's actually like a lineage of the ancient ways. It's definitely not exactly the ancient ways of magic. It was actually created in like the 1970s or something by so-called created, right, by this guy on like the East Coast, I think, of the US with some like European roots, okay? So fill in all the blanks there. There's like different perspectives at play. But modern day Wicca, let's just use this as an example because it's more like approachable for most of us who are probably watching this channel. You're probably a little more familiar with that stuff. But like that's actually considered to be modern day paganism, if you will. So paganism is like the more ancient umbrella term that covered all these different ancient lineages that I'm talking about. Technically, Egyptian culture was considered paganism if you're gonna put it under this umbrella of like world religions, okay? Because there's multiple deities involved and it's more of a nature-oriented spirituality belief system. But in modern day Wicca, like so-called witches, right, people who conduct magic, or even like high priestesses or high priests, people have different names that they like to identify with, but in those traditions you see modern day moon magic is very alive and well because they understand an ancient concept that our elders and our ancestors were practicing. So that's just one body of knowledge that's alive and well today because they understand that the phases of the moon literally dictate the tides of this planet. Check it out, your body's over 70% water, okay, minimum. If that's the factual case, which it is, then if the moon controls the tides, how could it not have an effect over one's body if one's body is over 70% water? So, you know, just using that kind of like mentality, you can refer back to these larger bodies of knowledge, ancient and their modernized versions, such as a Wicca, right, a Wiccan practitioner, to kind of like ground yourself in this reality that like this is an ancient concept that I as a modern day incarnate can capitalize on or can use to my advantage, okay? So, you know, witches and high priestesses, they'll use the moon cycles to their advantage because, as I instructed you in the last video, when you want to grow something in your life, as the moon is currently waxing as I film this, you do it under a waxing moon. Yes, you can do it under a new moon, for sure, but check it out. You're going to sign a deal, you're going to sign a contract that you want to grow real good, do it under a waxing moon. You want to do something that's going to grow muscle in your life, start that ritual under a waxing moon. You want to start a diet and stay on that diet, do it under a waxing moon. Now, under the flip side, say you want to start a diet, but you want to get rid and really focus on getting rid of or eliminating something out of your diet, do it on a waning moon because you're getting rid of that thing under that waning moon. Does that make sense? It's all in how you conceptually match your thoughts with your emotions, because emotion is energy in motion. And when you think about what is energy, energy is fluidity. What element do you know of which the moon controls, which is fluid? Water. That's right, water. Water and energy and emotion are linked like this. Let's just back up into our astrology bank of knowledge. Water as an element is associated with what? Emotion. Energy in motion. Emotion. So there's simpatico. You check these different philosophies and you check these different lineages and you begin to understand that more of it is connected than it is disconnected, okay? So more of it is united than it's not. And so let's just talk about another example of modern day practitioners and also our heritage around practitioners who have been using the moon cycle to their advantage. Farmers. If you talk to a biodynamic farmer, that's like organic plus. That's like next level organic, right? They're like way more in tune with their localized plot of land. Biodynamic farmers are open to more like so-called holistic or so-called spiritual practices like crystal grids and so forth. And they do a lot of things to be more like in tune with the earth earth and work with the earth in a way where it's not like extrative and it's more symbiotic, and it's more like based off of mutualism where like everybody involved is benefiting rather than leeching the planet and leeching Mother Earth and taking away from Mother Earth without honoring Mother Earth. So if you think about like that philosophy twist, these people that I'm talking about are practicing the moon phases in their farming techniques. These kinds of farmers are woke, in other words, and what they're doing is using the moon phase when it's waxing to bring in things they want to grow, okay? You can use that in a variety of ways. You can plant seeds under a waxing moon. You can take a harvest under a full moon because it's a culminative period, okay? You can set your intentions for how things are gonna be growing or figure out your plan for how you want to approach your growing under a full moon, or excuse me, a new moon, okay? Because it's the beginning of something and it's a new cycle, it's a renewal of things, okay? So on a waning moon where things are going away, you might find a biodynamic farmer or just a woke farmer in general is applying like an organic pesticide of some form or an organic herbicide of some form under that waning moon where the moon phase is actually disappearing. The visible portion of the moon is going away. So you're taking away by applying a pesticide that's organic and symbiotically in relation with the Mother Earth, or applying an herbicide that's somehow organic, okay, under that waning moon, because it's taking things out, it's removing things out of our consciousness at that time. Do you see how it connects? Isn't it fascinating? So as I said, also shamans do this, all sorts of energy practitioners, okay? All sorts of energy practitioners use this knowledge, they're woke on this knowledge. And you know, this is getting a little long, so before you leave, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, because I'm here for you with the daily drops of wisdom and savvy cat astrology. And if you do want a reading, go ahead and reach out to me at wisdomdrops, all Z's, @gmail.com. And I'll be sure to be back in touch with you about my current rates and any specials I have going on. So with that said, my friend, thank you for the support. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for sharing it with a friend if you felt that it was of value. And with that said, I'll see you next time, and may the stars be with you. Peace.